graders, welcome back to your TV classroom. Today is Thursday, February 18th. And do you know what that means, Mr. Kevin?
No.
10 days left in February.
Oh.
Can you believe it? It's almost March.
What?
10 more days till March.
Wow.
February goes so fast because it's a shorter, but it's only shorter by 2 days, sometimes 3 if it's leap year. But for some reason, it feels a lot shorter.
It's the perception.
It is the perception.
Yeah.
Well, friends, we've only got 10 days left in February to learn, so we better do the best we can, right? Before we start learning, let's check in with our zone. How are you feeling today? What zone are you in? Why do you feel that way? What are you going to do about it? You know, I am in the green zone today. Yesterday, I was in the green zone, the red zone, the yellow zone, and the blue zone at different points during my day.
All in the same day?
All on the same day.
Wow.
It happens.
How did you get yourself out of?
Well, when I was in the red zone, I had to walk away and remove myself from the conflict that was happening and take some deep breathing. And I took some of the empathy work you've been doing. And I was really frustrated at something someone did, but I stopped and I thought, well, they're also feeling frustrated. And I'm wondering why they're also frustrated. And then I realized that we both kind of wanted the same thing. We were just kind of doing it in a different way. So then I went back to that person and I said, you know, I'm realizing that you were wanting to do this way, and I was wanting to do it this way. Can we come up with a compromise in how to do it together? And it did, and we worked, and it was great. So I'm even learning from Miss Oslin when she's talking about empathy and all of those things with all of you.
That sounds like a great strategy.
It was a really good strategy to stop and kind of stop thinking about myself and think about the other person. Got me right out of that red zone. It was great. So let's get on with our What's Missing Thursday. Now, when we play What's Missing Thursday, we know that first we have to figure out what's not missing and what do we know. Take a look at this slide. What do you know? You know that the total is going to be 63, and you know that there's going to be 9 in each group. So how many groups are there? Do you know this fact? What times 9 is 63? Yeah, 7. Didn't have to skip count, didn't have to draw a picture. You knew that 7 times 9 was 63. You could also do 63 divided by 9 equals something. And then you could 9, 18, and you could count on and skip count. That would work too. Let's take a look at the next one. What times 9 is the same as 81? Yep. 9. 9 times 9 is 81. Ready for the next one? What times 9 is 90? If 9 groups of 9 is 81, how many more groups of 9 am I going to need to get to 90? Just one more group. So how many is that? It's not 9 anymore, it's 10. 10 groups of 9 is 90. Okay, if 10 groups of 9 is 90, then how many groups of 9 is 99? How did you know it was 11? Right, because 90 plus one more group of 9 is 99. So I had 10, and I add one more group, so I have 11 groups. Okay, if 11 groups of 9 is 99, then how many groups of 9 is 108? How many groups of 9 do I need to go from 99 to 108? One more group. So if 11 groups of 9 is 99, add one more group in there. How many groups of 9 is 108? Yeah, it's 12. Great job, third graders. Today we are learning to solve word problems that involve arrays. So yes, on Tuesday we were doing like drawing of pictures and baskets, and we were doing all of that kind of just using what we know. Today we're going to be using arrays. And if you have little sticky notes or bigger sticky notes, you want to grab those. If not, that's fine. You can just use dot arrays. That totally works too. If you have graph paper, you could do it on graph paper. Use whatever you have around you. That's fine. All right, let's look at this first problem. Here we go. It says, use sticky notes to make an array to represent and complete this division fact. Well, what does that mean? So I'm going to have a total of 12. Mr. Kevin, could I get all 3 up? So I need 12 sticky notes. So I'm going to count out 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? Because when I'm dividing, this first number tells me how many I have altogether. It's my whole amount. So I've got 12. Divided by 6. So that could be divided by 6 groups or groups of 6. You decide how you want to do it. If you don't have sticky notes, just draw it on your whiteboard, please, just with dots or squares. I have to go over further. How you doing? I think drawing it's a lot easier, but the sticky note seemed like fun. So, sometimes we do things that are fun. Okay, so that's a group of 6. And, oh, look at that. This is a group of 6.
It's a sticky situation here.
It is a sticky situation. 12. I have 1 extra.
And I've noted that, by the way.
Oh, Mr. Kevin. Mr. Kevin. So what did I show, friends? I showed 2 groups of 6. So what's 12 divided by 6 then? 2, but what if I did this? Now I have 6 groups of 2. My answer is still 2. That didn't give us any context. They didn't give us a story problem like there are 21 apples in 3 baskets. How many apples in each basket? They just gave us an equation. So we get to attach the meaning. We get to decide. I have 12 sticky notes. I arrange them into groups of 6. How many groups do I have? I have 12 sticky notes. I arrange them into groups of 2. How many groups do I have? Right? That's how it goes. Pretty cool, huh? Because the answer would be 6 there. The answer is 2 here. So we know, though, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 in 6 groups. 6, 6 in 2 groups. So we look at all of those things. I know I have 12. I know I have 6. And I know I have 2. I can have 2 groups of 6, or I can have 6 groups of 2. So if my equation has 12 divided by 6, I know my answer is going to be 2. Great. Let's look at the first problem. A clothing store. Now I'm only using sticky notes for this one. We'll draw for the rest of them because the sticky notes take way too long. And I'm actually just going to draw right here on the screen because it's nice and big and I left myself space. So a clothing store uses stacking crates for storing jeans. So this is our first read and we're trying to figure out what's happening. The manager orders 42 crates. 6 crates will fit in 1 row along the wall. How many rows of crates will there be? Now, I don't have a lot of knowledge of storage rooms and clothing, and I'm not really making sense of this problem. Are you having trouble making sense of this problem? I am. So I'm going to read it again. And let's see if we can get a mental picture in our head. A clothing store uses stacking crates for storing jeans. So those must be like a box that they put jeans in. The manager orders 42 of those crates. So there's 42 crates. 6 crates will fit in 1 row along the wall. How many rows of crates will there be? Oh, so what's happening in this problem is there's some crates and they're going to put them in a row and we're trying to figure out how many rows they need to make. Okay. Let's go ahead and figure out the question that they're asking. A clothing store uses stacking crates for storing jeans. The manager orders 42 crates. 6 crates will fit in 1 row along the wall. How many rows of crates will there be? What's our question? Okay, let's find our information. A clothing store uses stacking crates for storing jeans. The manager orders 42 crates. 6 crates will fit in one row along the wall. What's the important information? Does it matter that they're storing jeans in these crates? Do I need to know that? Not for the figuring out the answer. To give us an idea, yeah, but not for the answer part. So what do I need to know to solve? That we have 42 crates and that 6 crates fit in one row. That's important. Go ahead and use that information, use an array, and solve this problem. Okay, friends. Mr. Kevin, can you show my board?
Certainly.
So what I did is I used kind of an array. I made the rows, but I didn't want to draw all the boxes. So I just put how many crates were going to be in each row, and then I solved. And I got 7 rows will fit. What did you get at home? Did you find 7 rows would fit? Let's take a look at how they solved it here. They said, you can use a drawing and solve problems about arrays. You can use an array to show a row of 6, add rows of 6 until you get to 42, and that's what I did. I went 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42. That's what I did on mine. Then they said you can also use words to show and solve problems about arrays. You can make notes about the problem, like there's 42 crates in all, 6 crates in each row, question mark, how many rows? And then you turn those words into equations. You can use multiplication or division to find the number of rows. You could say, let me get my pen, that oops, I'm on white. Oh dear. I don't know how many rows there are, but I know that there's 6 in each row, and I know that my total is going to be 42. And then you can think, what times 6 equals 42? And if you know that fact, then you'll know your answer. If you don't know that fact, then you need to go, I don't know that fact, so I'm going to need to divide 42 divided into groups of 6. So I'm going to skip count by 6 and figure out how many groups I have, which is 7. But that's not our answer. 7 rows. That's our answer. So what do the numbers stand for? These numbers. 42, 6, and 7. What are those numbers in this problem? What are they standing for? Yeah, we've got a total amount. We've got the number in each group, and then we're finding the number of groups there are. So what was unknown in this problem? Were we trying to figure out the total amount, trying to figure out how many in each group, or trying to figure out how many groups? We didn't know how many groups. Then it says, use the letter R to stand for the unknown number. Write a division equation that can be used to solve the problem. So go ahead and use these numbers, and instead of using the answer, I want you to put an R. See if you can write that equation, and then write the related multiplication problem that does the same thing. I'll give you about 30 seconds. a look. That's what you should have written. Nice job, friends. Now, we're not going to do this top question. We've already explained a lot about solving that problem. Explain how you can use an array to solve this problem. There are 24 crayons in a box. There are 8 crayons in each row. How many rows of crayons are there? What array could we draw? Yeah, we could do 8. So I'm going to do dots. We'll do a dot array. And then I'm going to just count on until I get to 24. So 8 and 8 is 16. And 16 and 8 is 24. So how many rows did I draw? Yeah, 3. I had 8 in each row, 3 rows of 8. What would my multiplication equation look like? R for rows times 8 equals 24. So what's the division equation we did? We took 24 and we split it into groups of 8. And that told us how many rows there were. Pretty cool, huh? All right, let's do this problem. There are 54 flowers in the garden. There are 9 flowers in each row. How many rows of flowers are there? Show your work. I'm going to give you 1 minute. Off you go. I'm going to do it on my whiteboard. You're going to do it on your whiteboard. Okay, take a look at my model. Here we go. All right, I didn't do the dots because I wanted to save time. I could do 9 in each row, but I just wrote the number 9 because I was skip counting by 9. So what I did is I drew 9, then I said, well, 18. And I was like, well, nope, gotta keep going. 27. And then 9 times 4, and then I stopped and I said, I know 9 times 5 is 45. So I'm just gonna do 5. And then I said, but I need 54. Oh, that's just another group of 9. So I used what I knew about 9 times 5 to help me figure out what was 54. So my equation was the number of rows times 9 is gonna equal 54. So I took 54 and I divided it into rows of 9 until I got to 54. And then I counted my rows, and there were 6 rows. So 54 divided by 9 equals 6. So my answer was there are 6 rows of flowers. Yours should look something like this. Now, if it doesn't, now is the time that you need to stop and email your teacher and say, I need help with dividing. I'm stuck on the lesson I did today with Mrs. Wally. Please help. That's your job as a 3rd grader. We can't unzip your brain and know that you're struggling. You have to be an advocate for yourself and tell us that. Okay? Your homework today is to do page 373, 374. We do not want you sitting at home struggling with your homework, not understanding it. You let your teacher know, I don't understand it and I need help. That is an okay thing to do. That's why we're here. And let me tell you, I was struggling with my homework for my master's and I didn't want to talk to the teacher. I was like, I don't want to tell them I'm just going to try and do it. And then I realized that's why I tell my students. I tell my students, I'm here. Use me. And so, I'm going to sneeze. Sorry, Mr. Kevin.
Bless you.
Thank you. Hopefully you were able to take your headphones out with enough notice.
It was fine.
Okay. So, please reach out to your teacher or to us here at the TV classroom if you're not understanding. It's why we're here. And I will tell you that I did reach out to my professor and they did help me, and now I understand it. So it's important to do. Let's do our learning check. Today we learned to solve word problems that involve arrays. We modeled the problem, we wrote an equation that represented the problem, and we used the equation to find a solution. Now, Mr. Kevin, how can they contact us here if they need to ask for help?
Sure, if you want to get some help from Miss Wally, or Miss Oslin, for that matter, you can email us, tvclassroom@tacoma.k12.wa.us. You can always mail us in the regular mail at 601 South 8th Street, Tacoma, Washington, 98405.
All right, third graders, now it's time for your break. You're going to take your break and then be ready to learn with Miss Oslin with your ELA packet and your pencil and your learning buddy and all the things you need for ELA. Have a great Thursday, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.
Greetings, young adventurers. You will be going on a quest. It will be a dangerous quest, filled with obstacles and dangerous creatures. Should you make it to the end of each level, you will receive a coin. Find all 4 coins, and you will be crowned the champion and receive this prize. Good luck, young adventurers. Well, time for my nap. Good day, young adventurers, and good luck. Greetings, young adventurers! Congratulations on collecting all 4 coins. Well done. By completing this quest, you will now receive your prize. I hope to one day see you again for another adventure. Goodbye, young adventurers.
Hi, third graders. Welcome back from your break. I see that you have gathered your materials. Go ahead and put your ELA packet, your pencil, your reading and writing notebooks, just put them off to the side. You can hold on to your learning buddy if they will help you focus. Let's remind ourselves of our 3 personal standards. Today and every day when we come together, we agree to show respect, make good decisions, and solve problems. We're going to continue our author study of Patricia Polacco today. We are going to read a book called Just Plain Fancy that she wrote and illustrated. And one thing that I thought was really interesting about Patricia Polacco is that when she was asked about the themes that run through her books, which is what's some of the same things that keep coming up when we read her books, is she gave us a quote here. It says, "The other issue in my books is multiculturalism. I grew up in Oakland, which is in California. I grew up in Oakland as well as Michigan. And my neighborhood had people of every color and belief system and still does. I try to play homage to that." So today we're going to think deeply about how reading stories about people with different traditions, lifestyles, and cultures other than their own expands our knowledge of those cultures. And in this world, it invites you to imagine the stories in other people's lives. And Patricia says she pays homage to people of different cultures. That means she celebrates them. She honors them. We're not just going to tolerate anymore. We're going to celebrate and honor. And she finds joy in people and the lives that they lead. Now, a reminder that culture is a group of people who have similar habits, attitudes, beliefs, and expectations. That's what we mean when we say your culture. And in this book, Just Plain Fancy, it's a story about a young Amish girl named Naomi who lives in a plain and simple life, and they'll explain what that means. And Patricia shares the different cultures of the Amish people and the ways in which Naomi lives within her culture and how she interacts. And it's really interesting about Patricia as a writer. When she imagined the stories of different cultures and their lives like Naomi, she also sees similarities among the cultures. So today we are learning that writers often write stories about people from many cultures in our world. And that's one thing that I'm going to challenge you at the end of our lesson today when you go off to do your independent writing, is to think about how can you write a story about someone else's culture. So let's get started with Just Plain Fancy. Caleb and his 2 daughters hurried along Lancaster County Road in their buggy. Cars whizzed by them, but they paid no mind. Clop, clop, clop went the horses' hooves on the pavement. Papa, Naomi asked, why don't we have a car like the English? It's not our way, child. We are in no hurry, he said as he drew up the reins and slowly directed the horse into their farmyard. Now, we're learning about the culture of Naomi and her father and the rest of her family, and the common habits, attitudes, beliefs, and expectations that they have. And one of those is that they're not in a hurry. They don't need a car. They can get there when the horses get them there. And I'm wondering about what Papa says. He says, that's not our way. And Naomi's reaction. So what does it mean to have a way that you do something? And what is something that you have a way of doing? Take some think time. Turn and tell your learning buddy what you're thinking. Rafa, I'm thinking about the way that we do school. And while it's changed this year for sure, traditionally in our culture, students go to school from September to June. They're in grades based on their age. And when they're at school, traditionally speaking, there's a teacher in the front and the students are at the back of the classroom, and the teacher is the one talking and the students are the ones listening. Now, this is something that we can continue to think of as we read Just Plain Fancy, and notice what are the similarities and what are the differences that we're learning about. While their father unharnessed and watered the horse, Naomi and Ruth skipped toward the hen house. The chickens were Naomi's responsibility. She saw to their feeding and watering as well as the collecting of their eggs. Everything around here is so plain, Naomi complained. Our clothes are plain, our houses are plain, even our chickens are plain. It would pleasure me just once to have something fancy. Pshaw, Naomi, you oughtn't be saying such things, little Ruth scolded. As Naomi and Ruth searched the field for eggs laid outside the hen house, they spotted a very unusual one nestled into the tall grass down the drive and behind the hen house next to the road. This egg looks different from any I have ever seen, Naomi said quietly. It's still warm. Let's put it in Henny's nest. This one needs to be hatched. She gently picked up the egg and eased it into her basket. Although it was a little bigger than Henny's other eggs and a little darker in color, Naomi gently tucked the egg into the nest while Henny and Ruth looked on. You're so good with chickens, Ruth chirped. I just know you're going to get your white cap this year. Mama says you're ready. Naomi was proud of her chickens and the way she raised them. The elders were coming for a working bee or frolic in the coming summer, and Naomi wondered whether her parents might present her with the white cap on that day. Her thoughts were interrupted by Ruth's voice. Ain't we pleasured, she said. You wanted something fancy, and now you've got it. Now, by reading Patricia Polacco's story, I'm learning a little bit about Naomi and Ruth's culture. And Naomi's saying that she's the one who takes care of the chickens. And I've noticed she has a blue cap. And she's saying that when the elders, or when the older, maybe the older grandparents or aunts and uncles come visit, they may present her with a white cap. And I wonder if that's a sign of becoming more mature, taking on more responsibilities. I didn't know that about this culture. Let's keep reading. As the days passed, Naomi and Ruth checked Henny's nest constantly. Every day they peered over the edge of the crib, watching for signs of cracks in the shells. Then, one day, the eggs hatched. Look at the little chick from the fancy egg, Naomi, Ruth squealed, or I guess it's Nami. That must be what she calls her, like her nickname. Look at the little chick from the fancy egg, Nami, Ruth squealed. That egg was fancy inside and out, wasn't it? Said Naomi. Fancy. That's just what we'll name the chick. Fancy, 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 Ruth sang out as she jumped about. Naomi smiled and clapped her hands. All that afternoon, the girls stayed with Henny, watching and studying their special little chick. That is so interesting. Weeks passed. Henny's chicks grew quickly Weeks passed. Henny's chicks grew quickly and were soon scratching around in the dirt. They had all lost their yellow down feathers and had grown bright white ones. All of them except Fancy. Fancy looked very different from the others. There was no doubt about it. This chick wasn't plain. Can you see which one is Fancy? Fancy has the darker head. One afternoon in the wash house, Naomi and Ruth overheard Aunt Sarai talking to Cousin Hannah about a person in the neighboring Amish community. She dressed too fancy, Sarai said. She had to be shunned. They'll explain that word in just a moment. It is wrong to be start that sentence over. Is it wrong to be fancy? Naomi asked. Indeed, yes, snapped Hannah. We are plain folk. It is in our laws, the ordnung, that we must be plain. What does shun mean? Ruth asked haltingly. Someone who is shunned is shamed in front of the elders, made to feel like they shouldn't be doing something that's shamed. Someone who is shunned is shamed in front of the elders. After that, friends and neighbors are instructed not to speak to that person. They are no longer one of us. Sarai answered with authority. Naomi and Ruth looked at each other and hurried outside to hang up the washing. Naomi felt botherment inside. That word botherment, Naomi felt botherment inside. I'm just noticing it's a different type of speaking, the word botherment. I would say I felt bothered, but in Naomi's culture, they speak a little differently. They say Naomi felt botherment inside. That's just a difference in our language, but we all have the same feelings sometimes. As soon as they were finished, the girls ran to the hen house. What are we going to do? Ruth asked. Fancy is too fancy to be Amish. Then Fancy ruffled up his feathers and did something that took their breath clean away. Okay. Fancy is the bird on the bottom left. What do you think Fancy did? Do you have a prediction? Take some think time. Mr. Kevin, what do you think?
I think I know what kind of bird Fancy is, but I'm not going to say it.
Okay, don't say it. Don't say it. We don't want to spoil it. Let's keep reading. We'll have to hide him until we know what to do, Naomi said finally. The elders will be here for the frolic tomorrow. He'll be shunned, Ruth whimpered. Maybe we will be too. They put Fancy into another part of the hen house and locked the door. You'll remember to be shunned means they shame them, make them feel like they're doing something they shouldn't, and then nobody talks to them anymore. That must be really hard. The next morning, the neighboring Amish folk arrived for the frolic. The men and boys helped add a stable onto the Vlex's barn. They worked hard in the sun while the women folk cooked and gossiped. Naomi and Ruth helped serve the food, pour lemonade, and thread needles for the women who were quilting. This should have been a happy day for them, but the girls were not pleasured because they were sad with worry about Fancy. Now I'm noticing the different use of language on this page as well. I'm going to reread that sentence. But the girls were not pleasured because they were sad with worry about Fancy. Now, you or I might say, but the girls were not happy because they were sad with worry about Fancy. But our characters, Naomi and Ruth, have a different way of speaking. They would say they were not pleasured. It's interesting. Again, we have the same feelings, but we just say it in a little different way. When she served the last ladle of lemonade, Naomi started toward the hen house. Just then, she noticed the open door. But before she could get there to shut it, Fancy darted out and ran toward the gathering, flapping his wings. "Oh no!" Naomi called out. "This is all my fault. I wanted something fancy. I should have known better than to make that kind of wish." Tears ran down Ruth's cheeks when she saw what had happened. "Poor Fancy," she cried. "Now he'll be shunned." Over, under, around, through, Naomi ran after Fancy, trying to catch him before anyone noticed. And that's about the time that Fancy decided to head straight for the elders. He flew at Martha, the oldest member of the gathering. Adjusting her glasses, she gasped as he flew over her head just before landing on the clothesline where the quilts were airing. "Please don't shun him," Naomi cried. "I did this. I made him Fancy," she sobbed. At that moment, pleased with all the attention, Fancy ruffled his feathers and did for the guests what he had done for the girls in the hen house the day before. Those who weren't speechless were stunned. Okay, Mr. Kevin, tell us what you thought about Fancy, and we'll see if you're right.
I think Fancy is a peacock.
A peacock. I'm thinking about the peacocks that I've seen at the zoo, and let's see if you're right.
Woo!
That is Fancy. Look at all those bright colors. So big. Dry your tears, child. It was Martha who finally spoke. "This isn't your doing. This is God's handiwork. Only he could think up colors like that." "You mean you aren't going to shun him?" Ruth asked. "One can only be shunned for going against the ways of our people," Martha continued. "This is no plain old chicken. This be one of God's most beautiful creatures. He is Fancy, child. That's the way of it." All who were gathered there rejoiced in Fancy's beauty. "I believe you have this coming, child," old Martha said as she held out the new white organdy cap. "Your family believes you have earned this well, and I agree. Not only have you given good and faithful care to your flock of chickens, but you have also raised one of the finest peacocks I ever did see." Standing proudly amidst the gathering, Naomi held Fancy in her arms. She had learned many things that day. Now I'm reflecting upon what I thought about the white cap, and it seems like I was right. I learned something about the Amish culture from reading Patricia Polacco's work. It's very interesting. And although no one ever quite knew how Fancy came to be hatched by Henny, it was never questioned. Plainly, it was a miracle, and sometimes miracles are just plain fancy. Wow, this story really opened my eyes or taught me a lot about another culture. And one thing I really enjoyed about Just Plain Fancy is that though I didn't know a lot about the Amish lifestyle, I knew about the horses. I wasn't quite sure about the cap thing or the ordnung or the shunning. I learned quite a bit from Patricia's use of language and her illustrations. And though the Amish live differently than I do, maybe not different than you. Maybe you can relate a lot to this story. I don't know. But they are different certainly than how I live. But I could relate a lot to Naomi. I could feel the feelings that she was feeling, some of her confusion, even about her own culture, because I've experienced that in my life as well. So we learned today that writers often write stories about people from many cultures in our world. And studying Patricia's Just Plain Fancy actually taught us about different cultures. So I want you to consider, that means think about writing a story in a setting of a culture that's a little bit different than yours. And I want you to do that in your writer's notebook. And you can remember when you're doing your independent reading, think about, are the characters in your story from a different culture than yours? Pay close attention if you're reading folk tales to the language that's used, remembering the literary language and the cultural language that you can use as a writer as well. Continue to track your reading in your reading log, and please do send us any of your writing, any of your noticing about the different cultures of the characters in your books and the language that is used. And Mr. Kevin's going to tell you how you can send us your writing.
That's right, third graders. You could even send us something, shall I say, fancy?
Oh, yeah, make it fancy.
Make it fancy. You can email us, tvclassroom@tacoma.k12.wa.us, or you can send it in the regular mail, TV Classroom, 601 South 8th Street, Tacoma, Washington, 98405. And if I may say so,
Please.
Miss Oslin, I used to live down by Point Defiance Park.
Yeah.
And one day, here come 3 or 4 peacocks walking up the street. They had escaped the park.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and then one of them flew up on the roof of my house.
What did you do?
Nothing.
Yeah,
we
you just let it be.
watched.
Yeah.
They were beautiful.
Yeah. So you made a very personal connection with this story.
I did.
What a strong reader you are. Okay, third graders. This is a time in our lesson when we get to say our affirmation. We get to build ourselves up before we go off to do our independent work. And sometimes it can be when I'm asking you to write a story from the perspective of a different culture, it can be kind of intimidating and scary. But I want to remind you that you are a brave writer. You can try new things. In fact, you can send us what you're writing and we'll share it here on our TV classroom. You can be brave. So say, I am a brave writer. Excellent job today, third graders. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you next time in our TV classroom. Bye.
Hey kids, we want to see your work. Just send your pictures and your stories to TV Classroom, 601 South 8th Street, Tacoma, Washington, 98405.